Hello, it has been a long time since I recorded a video, and with tomorrow being my new year, my birthday, I figured why not do a video year reflection instead of my usual written reflection. So a lot has happened in this last year, and I'm gonna give the Cliff Notes version. Probably not, but we'll see where this goes. So, what happened in this last year? So, this time in 2024, I had just buried my mother about a month earlier. And so I was not in a space of wanting to celebrate for the first time in many years. And so last birthday was a little different because I didn't want to celebrate it without her. It was the first one in 40 years that I've ever had to have without her. As we fast forward past my birthday, I also made the decision to go on sabbatical. I was pastoring at the time, but I did take a step away to give myself time to grieve and also to give the church the opportunity to have someone pastor them that was able to give them their full and undivided attention. That sabbatical did lead to me eventually stepping all the way away from pastoring and going back into the non-pastoring status within the AME church. During that time last year, I starred in a stage play, and I played the mother, Teresa Price. The play was actually put on twice this year. It was put on in November and it was put on in March. And the March play was actually held at my home church, and we submitted it into many different film festivals where we won in the category that we were in. We also won some other awards like Best Director, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, and I won for Best Supporting Actress, and that was a very big surprise because I was not expecting that. Unfortunately, I am no longer with the company and with the play, so I will not be performing with them in December, but that is what it is, and that is how the cookie crumbles. Let's see, what else happened? I started a job and resigned 6 weeks later because grief hit me very hard between the months of January and March. I was in my first year of the PhD program, and I was dismissed in May, and that was a very difficult process to navigate, and I'm still in the middle of navigating it, but you know, God's gonna have God's way. And so that was very unfortunate. I was elected in January president of the Virginia Beach Interdenominational Ministers Conference, but I have since resigned from that as well. There's a lot of resignation going on, a lot of stepping away that happened this year. And there are some other spaces that I have resigned from. There are some relationships that I have severed. There are some ties, I should say, that I have severed. There are some relationships that I have let go of. There were some relationships that let go of me, and I let them go. But be that as it may, it all happened this year. But it wasn't all bad. Olivia was a debutante. She won first runner-up in the red and white cotillion. And so because of that, she has a scholarship that is waiting for her when she goes off to college. She got her first acceptance letter to college, along with another scholarship. So that's exciting as well. I did bring in another teenager into my house, and that has been an interesting journey to say the least. I got to marry my best friends, and that was freaking amazing. Being the one that introduced them and then turning around years later and being the one to bring them together in holy matrimony. Oh my gosh, it was such a God moment, because at the time I wasn't even a pastor when I brought them together. So to be able to just join them in union was like the highlight of my summer. Let's see, what else happened this year? I spent time with my sister. I preached for a revival. I've lost a significant amount of weight, but in that I've also lost my hair, not because of the weight, but because of stress. I started walking every day starting in July, but then when September came, something happened and I fell off. So I haven't really been walking in September and October. But while I was walking, I was recording videos and I put them on social media, on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. What is going on with this little piece of hair right here? Yes, I put them on all the socials. And then somewhere in this journey, I decided I didn't want to be on the socials anymore, so I deactivated all my pages. This has been a roller coaster of a year. I also went on a date this year, and that was very, very exciting. It was an episode of a Netflix rom-com, and I absolutely loved it. Okay. So that was very exciting. That was also a highlight of my year. I have learned so much about myself, and I have tapped into so many parts of myself that I have denied or rejected or felt like I needed to keep at bay. I didn't do that this year. This year, I really started to walk in the fullness of who I am and every aspect that makes me me. And in that also meant a lot of prayer and a lot of discerning around the spaces that I occupy, as well as ministry, and what that looks like for me in this season. I will say it has been interesting as I stepped away from formal spaces of ministry and moved into more spaces that were authentic for me. This is not saying anything up against anyone or any other space. I'm saying what is authentic. What is happening here? What is authentic for me, okay? And what has felt authentic for me. I also received a grant, right? I received the Reflective Leadership Grant from Duke Divinity. And so I was one of 39 grantees, and we met last week in Durham, North Carolina. And while we were together, it was our, what they call balcony time, our time to really sit and retreat, sit and rest, and really sit and reflect of where we have been and where we are going, and really seeking God's direction for the next phase of our journey, which this comes at a perfect time because this is where I am. When I started the retreat last week, I was in a very dysfunctional space, and I mean mental space and emotional space. And so I was not receptive. I could not feel God. I could not hear from God. And my prayer to God was just, listen, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. How do I feel? How do I hear you? How do I feel you when there's so many things that is in the way right now? Needless to say, by day 2, I prayed to God while I was in the shower. And when we got to our session was my prayer. And I came face to face with my initial sermon, a dream almost deferred. And it was rooted in Luke 13, verses 6-9, where there was a fig tree growing in a vineyard that had been growing for 3 years, but not producing fruit. And the man wanting to cut it down, and the gardener saying, let me take care of it. Give it me 1 more year. And so as I sat in that space listening to this and realizing that, God, you are very publicly answering the prayer that I prayed to you privately, God just kept saying, Tashara, give me 1 more year. Give me 1 more year. I didn't know exactly what that meant. I did not know exactly what God was asking for. And if I'm honest, I still don't know what that means. And I don't know what God was asking for. But all I know was God was saying, give me 1 more year. And so I left that space open to what God is going to do in this year, open to how God is going to move in this year, opening to how God is going to speak this year. And so last night I was on the phone with one of my friends, and they said to me very candidly, because they tend to be very candid with me, Tashara, I know what you said, but there is more for you, and there is more that you should be doing in ministry. And I don't want you to F this up. And all I could do was laugh, because I had been feeling that there is more that I should be doing or need to be doing, and just not knowing what that is. And so then they repeated it and said that there was more that I need or should be doing in ministry, and they didn't want to F it up for me. Whatever. No, I don't really mean whatever. And so as I sat with that this morning, the song Yes by Shekinah Glory popped into my spirit. And I started singing, there is more that I require of thee. And just kept singing it over and over again. On my way home this evening, I was talking to my daughter, and she was telling me about her experience at her boyfriend's church on Sunday. And she was talking about how the Spirit just flowed throughout the place, and how it just kept bouncing from person to person, and how when one person got to a place where they thought they were good, the Spirit would hit again and they would be laid out on the floor. And we talked about how when I was a pastor, we had those experiences. And I said to her, you know, we really did have some good times. They were marred by bad times at the end. And so sometimes I forget about the good that happened while I was there. And so we started recalling the times. And I said to her, I wish I would have had the foresight back last summer or earlier this year when Facebook was announcing that they were deleting all the lives. And I wish I would have had the foresight to go and to download those videos, because now they're all gone. There's no evidence of it. There's no remnants of it. And I said, my entire pastoral legacy is gone, aside from the pictures that are put up. But the way the Spirit moved, the messages that were preached, the dances that were danced, the jokes that were said, the inspirational messages that were given, they're all gone. And Olivia says to me, she says, well, Mommy, maybe it wasn't meant to be out there, because maybe it was just meant to rest in the memory of the people. And maybe your pastoral legacy is not supposed to be there. And so while she is talking, I'm still recalling. And I think back to one Sunday, and I don't remember the song, but the choir was rehearsing and they were singing the song while I was in my office. And I prayed, as I always do before I go out, but I started singing. And as I walked into the pulpit, I was singing. And as I sat down at my desk, I was singing. And as we sang the verses of the song, I kept singing. And even after the song was over, I kept singing. And I said, I don't even remember what happened, because I know we stayed in that space a very long time. And Olivia said, Mommy, you didn't even preach that Sunday. And then I thought about when the teen praise dancers came from Bethel and they praise danced to the song War Cry, and how the song was actually a part of my sermon. And so when I got to that place, the song started playing, they came up and they danced. And there was a shift and a transformation that happened while they were dancing, to the point that every young person that was in the room was slayed at the altar, crying, letting it all out. Everything that they had been holding on to, even the most stoic, was in tears. And what was even more beautiful was the way in which they held one another, the way in which they took care of one another while they were at the altar. And I looked at her and I said, you know, I really did enjoy being up there. And I really did enjoy being a pastor. And no sooner did I say that out of my mouth, the song begins to play again. There is more that I require of thee. So now I think back to the conversation that happened just last night. The conversation that says, Tashara, there's more that you're supposed to be doing in ministry. And I say to Olivia, I have been confronted with my call for the past several weeks. Because the interesting thing about that line in that song of there is more that I require of thee was the very words that God spoke to me in August of 2011 when God called me to preach. As I was reading Psalms 42, as a deer pants for water, so my heart yearns for thee. As I'm reading David pour out his heart to God about how there is more that he wants and more that he needs, and how he is thirsting and he is looking to God to satisfy that thirst, that he is looking for God to show up, that he is looking for God to reveal God in only the way that God can, and how David is just hungering and thirsting for God to show up. And I go back to that day where I'm just writing and crying because I hear God saying, there is more that I require of thee. And I think about how just last week I was face to face with my initial sermon of a dream almost deferred. How as I sit now in a crossroads of where God wants me to go and what God wants me to do, who God wants me to be connected to in this season, and where God wants me to sever ties. There is more that I require of thee. So then I do what I do in true Tashara fashion. I start playing the song. I start playing the song. Will your heart and soul say yes? Will your spirit say yes? There is more that I require of thee. And as I'm talking and sharing all of this with Olivia, she looks over at me and she says, maybe it's time for you to go back. And I say, go back to Campbell's? And she gives me the craziest look. And she's like, no, mommy, back to pastoring. There is more that I require of thee. Will your heart and soul say yes? Will you give God the one more year? And will you trust God in this year to do what God is going to do? Will you look past what your physical eyes see to trust that your dream, your desire, your hope is at the other end? Will you cower in fear? Because you're unsure? Will you go back to spaces that God has already delivered you from? Will you reestablish connections that God has already told you to leave and to break? Will your heart and soul say yes? Because there is more that I require of thee. That is a space that I am in now as I close out this chapter of my life. And I now start another one in 2 hours and 5 minutes. This year has been a very big year of transformation. this year has really forced me to think about myself, to think about my health, to think about my mental, to think about my emotional. It has really, really pushed me to really ask God who I was created to be and how I was created to show up in this world and what I was created to do in this world and who I am supposed to do it with. I can't tell you all that the new year will bring. But here's what I can tell you. I am on a faith assignment. And not the I pray about it and it happens faith. I am on the substance of things hoped for, evidence of things unseen, fig tree growing but not bearing fruit. Panting and thirsting after God faith assignment. I am re-entering my adult life 21 times 2. I will be 21 times 2 tomorrow. And so I am re-entering adulthood for the second time. And this 21-year-old Tashara will not be the same as the previous 21-year-old Tashara. And the Tashara that we see next year at this time will not be the Tashara we see right now. So will my heart and soul say yes? Will my soul say yes? Will my spirit say yes? Will I lean in and accept the more that God has for me in whatever way that may look like? The answer is yes. The answer is yes, God, I hear you calling. Yes, God, I hear you pulling. Yes, God, I hear you tugging. Yes, God, I feel your presence. Yes, God, I hear your voice. Yes, God, I hear you saying the time is now. So before I go into 42, I say yes to you on this last day of 41. I say yes to your will and yes to your way. I say yes, I will trust you and obey. I say yes to the move you want me to make. I say yes to the path that you want me to take. I say yes to the connections you want me to grow. I say yes even when you tell me no. I hear you, God. There is more that you require of me. There is more that you want from me. There is more that you want for me. And God, you just want more of me. So yes. 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 So this is how I end this year. And this is how I end this moment. And at the stroke of midnight, when my new year comes, I will go into it with a yes. For those of you that have journeyed with me for the last year, thank you. For those of you that have been a part of the journey for the last year, thank you. For those of you that extended grace when the Tashara you knew did not show up in the way you were used to her showing up, thank you. For those of you that held space for the broken me, for the heartbroken me, for the grieved me, thank you. For those of you that celebrated with me through all of the many milestones, thank you. For those of you that held me down when parenting became hard, thank you. For those of you that prayed for me and I didn't know you were praying for me, thank you. For those of you that were covering me when I didn't know that when I could not cover myself, thank you. For those of you that offered a kind word, thank you. For those of you that sent a message, thank you. For those of you that sent memes or jokes or videos or little idiosyncrasies to make me smile and make me laugh, thank you. For those of you that encouraged me, thank you. For those of you that complimented me and told me how nice I looked, told me how good I looked, told me, how amazing I was in my bombshell red dress. Thank you. For those of you that made this girl feel good, thank you. Thank you for loving me through everything. And thank you for loving all parts of me. Thank you for loving the angry me, the grieved me, the late me, the didn't show up me, the unreliable me, the reliable me, the dependable me, the undependable me. Thank you for loving the scholar me. Thank you for loving the non-scholar me. Thank you for loving the pastor in me. Thank you for loving the chaplain in me. Thank you for loving every single part of me. I am grateful for each and every one of you, for every part you played that got me from November the 4th, started on the 1st, November the 1st, 2024, to November 3rd, November 25. I am still not fully okay. Do not let the smile fool you. Do not let the videos fool you. Do not let all of the good times that I post on social media fool you. I am still not okay. I am still healing. I am still growing. And I still have I am still grieving. And I still have a ways to go. So continue to pray for me and I will pray for you. I love you all.